Herr Präsident, ich habe das Schriftstück durchgelesen jetzt. Es gibt ein Ergebnis, aber sagt nicht, wie es im Einzelnen zustande gekommen ist, in einer Weise, dass die Angaben nachprüfbar wären. Das heißt immer, er beruft sich auf seine Statistiken, aber gerade diese Statistiken sind nicht vorhanden, sodass der eigentliche Wert dieses Schriftstücks fehlt.
Dr. Servatis,
Judge Halevi, this is not directly connected with the accused, as far as I understand. This puts no new responsibility on the shoulders of the accused. There is no direct accusation.
Es ist wohl in sehr vielen Beweisstücken, die vorgebracht worden sind, etwas enthalten, was den Angeklagten direkt nicht belasten würde. Das traf auch bei den Zeugenaussagen zu. Ich habe dem nicht widersprochen. Aber jetzt am Ende des Verfahrens, wo ich mich mit dieser Frage doch irgendwie befassen müsste, ist es reichlich spät. Ich meine, dass diese Dinge an ganz anderer Stelle aufgeklärt werden können und müssen, nämlich bei Historikern, dass das Gericht nur sehr schwer kann.
Dr. Servatius, I have now read the document. It presents a result, a final figure, but it does not specify what possible examination there could be of the ways by which this result was attained. It keeps referring to the statistics which the author had at his disposal, but just what these statistics were, it is not clear, and this really deprives the document of its main value. And in reply to the question by Dr. Halevi, that is true. There were many bits of evidence here which included sections not directly accusing the accused of anything. I did not object to these types of evidence, but at this stage, when we are approaching the end of the trial, I have much work and I cannot find the leisure to investigate this. Therefore, I think it is quite late. I believe this entire matter belongs somewhere else, to the historians and not to this court.
President of Court, we shall give our decision, but I would like to hear a request by the Attorney General in regard to rebutting evidence and other matters. Mr. Hausner, next document I have in hand.
Geschäftsordnung der Reichsministerien שיצא בתקופת הנאצים.
This is an order of the Ministry of the Reich in the year 35, contains directives for ministerial correspondence. This, in fact, is part which should be as a preface to the volume now published by the Federal Republic. President of Court is...
Is it mentioned there somehow? Why do you say, sir, that it is part of the previous document?
Because this also relies on ministerial decisions from Weimar days. Also, the same as the document submitted, this is a kind of development or evolution. I don't know if it is complete, if in the meantime there were not similar directives or if they were not changed in the meantime. But this is what I know. This was published for use and reference by all ministries, and there is a paragraph here which is important in my opinion, in connection with how documents and papers should be sent on to a person, and mentioning his name. It is said here that this procedure should not be followed unless a special reason exists.
President of Court, this is regarding the name of the addressee, as one now employs this word in administrative matters. Is that right?
Yes, addressee.
הפסקה שאני רוצה
The
להסתמך עליה
paragraph I
אומרת שאין
beg
להזכיר
to rely on.
President of Court, please, just one moment, Mr. Hausner. President of Court, this is about addresses as to when the name of the addressee should be mentioned over and above the name of his office and department.
The directive is that correspondence should be sent on to the office, and the name of the officer in that office should be mentioned only in certain cases. Since there is an enormous amount of correspondence sent to the accused, bearing his name to his hand, there is also a big amount of correspondence sent to the foreign ministry, the German foreign ministry, to von Taden, Rademacher, all this by the accused. And assuming that he does follow directives, the general directives, which were binding upon him as upon other officers of the Reich, this will point to the fact that there was a special reason to this form of correspondence which was not the accepted and not the normal one. Therefore, I believe that this evidence may throw light to weigh the mode of reference, and I request the court to accept this as evidence. This is an official publication by the Third Reich.
President of Court, and this too, I take it, reached your hands only very recently?
Not as late as the previous document, but it did reach our hands rather late.
President of Court, perhaps you could tell us whether it got into your hands while the accused was still testifying?
Yes, Your Honor. This I must say.
President of Court, well, the truth can always be disclosed, of course.
But we have given our attention to this paragraph rather late.
Livingston.
Herr Präsident, ich habe bisher von diesem Beweismittel keine Kenntnis bekommen. Es hätte mindestens vorgebracht werden müssen, solange der Angeklagte befragt werden konnte, und es hätte ihm vorgehalten werden müssen, damit er Stellung nehmen kann. Es kommt aber Folgendes hinzu. Es müsste ja zunächst einmal behauptet werden, dass der Angeklagte diese Richtlinien gekannt hat. Er ist ja kein Berufsbeamter gewesen, der nun durch diese Schule gegangen ist, sondern man hat ihn in dieses Amt hereingesetzt und er hat, wie man sagt, er war ein Anlernling, der aber die einzelnen Dinge nicht kannte. Außerdem kommt Folgendes hinzu. Diese Bestimmungen aus dem Weimarer Regime, wie es damals hieß, wurden weitgehend abgelehnt.
President of Court, this was not from the Weimar regime, this was from the Third Reich from 1935. Rejection of this document.
Judge Robert, will you take the same stand even if the accused is given an opportunity to react and comment as a witness to this document?
Ich habe keinen Einwand dagegen, wenn das Gericht den Angeklagten fragen will. Ich glaube aber, er wird keine anderen Antworten geben, wie ich sie jetzt gegeben habe.
Dr. Savatius, I would have no objection to that if the court would like to question the accused, but it seems to me that he will give no other answers than the remarks I have just made. President of Court, Mr. Hausner, anything else?
Mr. Hausner, now matters which I request and am privileged.
President of Court, you are using your right for application.
N19, the affidavit submitted by the defense in connection with literature children who were near Kushtikovo in Poland. I ask to submit the book already mentioned by me when the affidavit N19 was submitted. This is rebutting evidence.
President of Court, this is rebutting evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. A book published in Czechoslovakia by the anti-fascist fighters organization. The book is called This Was Literature. Here Stood Literature. This is the name of this publication. There are 2 chapters. We translated from the Czech language. The one on pages 60-61 called, the chapter is called The Children Before the Death Gates of Chelmno, and on pages 73 to 83.
President of Court, perhaps we can first check what this chapter is based on, what testimony.
Your Honor, there are various protocols, reports, they were collected by the author, mentioned by him in this chapter.
President of Court, that is to say, he makes reference to testimony which he collected from people whose names he mentions.
He mentions the gardener Angenisha of Chelmno. He took down a report, a protocol, and also on page 73 to 83 there is a chapter in the book called The Fate of the Deported Children. The children's names are listed alphabetically. Their year of birth is given. Pushchikovo is mentioned especially with full explanation that a certain number of the children were actually in this place near Poznan.
President of Court, this is the same place near Poznan?
Yes, mentioned in affidavit N19. And I believe that this chapter explains fully on both sides how near the end of the war children were found when the Allied forces were advancing. A number of children were found near Ushchikovo.
President of Court, is it called Pushchikovo?
Ushchikovska is the name given here in the book. And Pushka in N19.
גם פה מסתמך
Here,
מדבר
too, the author
על ראיות שונות שהוא מזכיר אותן בדיוק.
referred to certain evidence and proofs which he mentions in the book.
President of Court, Mr. Hausner, does one not have to make a distinction here between those matters about all of the children and a separate problem with regard to the children mentioned in N19, the children who were in Pushkar till almost the end of the war?
Your Honor, we received this rather late. We did not know about the existence of this
אנחנו
book.
עשינו את כל הבירורים.
We tried to verify everything we could in Prague, and all we learned we did bring at the proper time to
לאחר
court.
שנודע לנו על נון 19,
Later, when we learned about N19,
ערכנו חקירות נוספות.
we continued our searches,
ובערך באותו זמן
and at about
הגיע אלינו גם
the same
הספר.
time the book reached our
לכן
hands.
הספר כבר היה בידי
Therefore, I already had the book when the defense submitted that document, and I said that much to court at
President
the
of Court,
time
yes, I
that
do
I was
remember that.
asked to submit
זאת היא
this book.
הבקשה הראשונה לגבי עדות
This is
הזמן.
my first request as far as rebutting evidence is
בקשתי השנייה
concerned.
לעדות
My
הזמן.
second request,
Judge Rave, in this connection, could I ask whether this book also mentions a place named Brockau, B-R-O-C-K-A-U. I have found this name in one of the documents which were attached to the Krumai testimony. There we have a letter dated 7th of June 1942, and it says there that on the same transport there are also 6 children who are fit for re-Germanization, and they are to be sent to Brockau.
שלי שאעביר את הפרקים
Mr.
האלה
Hausner.
לידי חברי מר בך.
if the court permits, I shall put the 2 chapters in the hands of my colleague Mr. Bach, and he will be able to give the answer to the court.
הקטע הגרמני אולי תתרגם ליצר
באותו טרנספורט נמצאים חוץ מזה 6 ילדים שניתנים
Judge Rabbe,
לארגון המיועדים למעון ילדים ברוקאו.
אולי נלך שוב לפי אותו
President
הסדר.
of Court,
נשמע קודם.
let us follow the same order. We shall ask Dr. Savatis for his opinion first.
מעון הילדים המחוזי. מעון הילדים המחוזי.
כן, אבל לא הבנתי משהו.
Ich habe diese Übersetzung erst gestern oder vorgestern bekommen und bin natürlich nicht in der Lage, im Einzelnen hier Untersuchungen anzustellen oder mich um Zeugen zu bemühen. Ich bitte, das Dokument als verspätet zurückzuweisen.
Dr. Savatius, I have received the document only last night or the day before, and I have not been able to study it. Therefore, I would request that it be rejected as having been submitted too late.
Selbst Zeugen, die doch von drüben stammen, haben eine gewisse Besorgnis, ihre Namen genannt zu haben. Und ich würde natürlich eins getan haben, diese eine Zeugin, die hier eine Erklärung abgegeben hat, dass sie die Kinder gesehen hat, gibt noch an, die Lehrerin befände sich in der Tschechoslowakei. Ich würde dann mich bemüht haben, an diese Frau heranzutreten. So hatte ich gemeint, ich könnte ihr die Lästigkeit dieser Angelegenheit ersparen, die für diese Zeugin damit verbunden sein könnte. Ich bitte daher, das Dokument als verspätet zurückzuweisen.
Interpreter's comment, the first part of Dr. Savatius' statement has already been translated.
ניתן לי רק אתמול או יום לפני אתמול, ואין לי עתה האפשרות להיכנס לפירוט ולחקור על כן אבקש לדחות את הראייה כמאוחרת.
Dr. Savatsis continuing. The clarification of the entire Lidice matter is very difficult for the defense because it is difficult to obtain witnesses from that area or to go into the country and make our own investigations. Even those witnesses who were obtainable have certain misgivings about having their name mentioned here. All I want to say perhaps is that one witness this one woman who did see the children says that the teacher of those children whom she had seen at the time still lives in Czechoslovakia. So that I could have approached that woman, the teacher, but I thought I would spare her the trouble and the unpleasantry which might be involved. For that reason, I should like to request that this evidence be rejected as having been submitted too late.
President of Court. This will also apply to the part with reference to affidavit number N19. This introduced a new element into the whole case. The children who, according to that lady witness, were seen around Poznan.
Das war Dokument nun 19. Es ist also sehr weit zurückliegend, eines der ersten Beweisstücke.
Dr. Savatsis, this was N19, one of the first pieces of evidence of the defense.
But you will remember, says President of Court, that Mr. Hausner at the time suggested the book be submitted in evidence in connection with N19. And we said at the time that he will have to bring up this request once again after the defense concludes its pleading. I do not know if a decision was given in this respect, but I remember that this was said by Mr. Hausner.
Jawohl, es ist ein entsprechendes gesagt worden, eine Entscheidung ist, glaube ich, nicht gefällt worden.
Jawohl, yes, this was stated, but I do not think there was an explicit ruling about the matter.
Dass jetzt nach Abschluss des Vortrags der Verteidigung diese Dokumente nun kommen.
It was not likely that the assumption was made then that these documents would come now at the end of the defense chapter.
President of Court, in any case, sir, your objection is to the whole matter and the whole set.
Jawohl, yes. President of Court, Mr. Hausner.
Mr. Hausner, I want to answer Dr. Rabbe. All we find here is that one of the children, Batla Zelenka, one of the children who was fit for re-Germanization, who stayed in Chustnikovo until the autumn of 44, was taken to an SS children's home on the Upper Donau. But other places are not mentioned. I want to explain my words. In Chustnikovo, the children who stayed there were those, or a part of those, who were considered fit for re-Germanization. That is why this is so important.
President of Court, fine. And now your last item, I suppose, Mr. Hausner?
Mr. Hausner, one thing more before the last. In N99, an affidavit by Alois Steiger, on page 3, he relies on words uttered by Paul Reve, who is now in Israel, in a kibbutz, and It seems that Steiger contends that Paul Remes and Ladislav
President of Court, just one moment. What page is that, please?
He says,
שמעתי, שמעתי אודות פאול רבס.
I heard about Paul Reves and Ladislav Perez, now in a kibbutz in Israel.
פה אומר מר שטייגר כי מפיו של מר רבס נודע לו שהרכבת הופנתה לברגן בלזן על ידי בשר.
And here he says that he learned from Reves that the train was directed to Bergen-Belsen because the money was not paid in time. The intention of this passage is to contradict Besher on the same subject, to rebut the evidence given by Besher.
לא עדותו של בכר, אלא דברי בכר.
President of Court, not Becher's testimony, but Becher's statement. Mr. Hausner, that is the same thing, isn't it? President of Court, here Steiger speaks about what he heard from Reves, about Becher's statement at the time. Isn't this so?
Mr. Hausner, yes, but in the meantime, Besher's words on the same subject were submitted to court. If by way of his testimony or by way of the interrogation. And this is meant to rebut Besher's words on this matter. That is, Besher directed the train to Bergen-Belsen because the money did not arrive. Steiger says this on account of what he heard from Reves.
President of Court, and what is the correct version as you contend?
The correct version is that Eichmann directed the train to Bergen-Belsen, and this Reves knows. In any case, he believes he does.
President of Court, can you point to the place in Becher's testimony where this comes up? זו עדות מאוד חשובה. President of Court, perhaps it is in one of his earlier testimonies.
The Hausner, this may be in 774, we shall find out. In any case, this setting down by Steiger is not correct.
President of Court, and what can Reves testify about this?
Mr. Hausner, Reves knows that he never said so to Steiger.
President of Court, but did he speak about this to Becher?
This no, but inasmuch as Steiger pretends to rely on what Reves told him in this matter, Steiger is mistaken.
President of Court, well, what information did Reves have about this altogether?
Inasmuch as he knew about the matter, he knew for sure that it was not Besher who directed the train.
חברים, מפנה תשומת ליבי.
Yes, my colleague calls my attention. It is on page 22 in Besha's testimony. He says, when Himmler confirmed the departure of some 1,700 people in July 44, and the list was drawn up by the Jewish Council, I was told by Kastner that in accordance with the direction by Eichmann, the deportation was sent to Bergen-Belsen. In accordance with Kastner's request, I spoke to Eichmann, and as far as I remember, he told me yes. For technical reasons, the deportation will be taken to Bergen-Belsen. I asked why Bergen-Belsen, not towards Switzerland. He said the people will be taken first to Bergen-Belsen. In answer to my question, when will this deportation continue on its way, Eichmann said, when the order is given. He added that the matter is still in his hands when the deportation will start moving. He has enough reasons to put before Himmler that the deportation is not ordered to leave. He can rely on the IPS order. He can also arrange that the deportation is lost on the way because of an air raid, an enemy raid.
President of Court, and this, you support this version, right?
Yes. On the face of it, the defense tried to contradict this by Steiger's affidavit, saying that Eichmann had no hand in this business. It was not his fault, not his blame for directing the train to Bergen-Belsen. Besha shifts the guilt onto Eichmann, which in fact he should bear himself. This is what Steiger says. And he reveals the source of his information, saying that this he heard from Reves.
President of Court, but it does not say where Reves heard it from.
No, Reves probably contacted Hansi Brandt and Kastner. He was active in these matters. There is no argument about this. This is correct. He was active. He was one of the underground movement in addition to all these activities. And he is likely to have known.
President of Court, but not from the first source, not from Becher directly.
No, not from Besha.
Dr. Rave, you, sir, also want to rebut a hearsay evidence here, which we could have used.
But since so many hearsay evidence, so much hearsay evidence was admitted by court, and I do not know which will have probative value and which the court will reject, I am not permitted to let such a passage pass which contradicts directly facts brought by the prosecution and which we consider correct.
President of Court, you will content yourself, sir, with Reves coming here and saying, I never told Steiger any such thing.
I did not tell Steiger such a thing, and as much as I know, the first testimony by Besha is correct.
Dr. Rave, and if we now commit ourselves not to rely on the Steiger passage, then you will not want to have Reves testify here, is that right?
Exactly. If this part of Steiger's testimony is struck out, there is no room to call
Judge Halevi, did you, sir, cross-examine the accused about this question as to who it was who directed the train to Bergen-Belsen rather than to Switzerland?
The Hausner, I believe I asked him only in general, and he said he never dealt with this matter, that this all was done by Besha. There was no room and no necessity to enter into details at the time. He answered that in general this was not his business. He did not deal with this. This was Besha's affair. He removed me from all contact.
President of Court, yes, I see now. Dr. Savatius, do you have any comment to this point?
Zu bestimmen hatte nur Becher die alleinige Vollmacht von Himmler. Ich bin damit einverstanden, wenn das Gericht diesen Passus, der von der Anklage hier beanstandet wird, ausschaltet. Ich habe zwar mit dem Zeugen Becher, mit dem Zeugen Steger selbst gesprochen, ist ein sehr wortreicher Mann und habe versucht, es in eine Form zu bringen, aber diese Dinge, die hat er mir, auch die Namen, hat er mir ja angegeben, nach reiflicher Überlegung. Und ich habe ihn auf die Bedeutung dieser Sache hingewiesen. Und er hat mir das erklärt, bevor die ganze Angelegenheit Becher aufgeklärt war, sodass ich keinen Zweifel habe, dass er die Wahrheit gesagt hat, oder wenigstens seinem Empfinden nach die Wahrheit gesagt hat. Ich bin aber einverstanden, wenn der Abschnitt ausgeschieden wird.
כן. טוב.
טוב, זה פותר כמובן את הבעיה, אם הקטע הזה נופל אז אין צורך.
Of course, if this passage is struck out, there is no need to call the witness.
Previous statement by Dr. Savatius.
בקביעה בדבר המשלוח,
As to the decision where the transport should go, Becher was the only person who had the authority, and he got this from Himmler.
הריני מסכים
I agree that the court should exclude this passage from the testimony. Although I did speak to Steger personally, he's a very vociferous, vociferous person. I tried to clarify it. To him, I pointed out to him what the significance was of this statement of his. As I said, he's a very talkative person, but then when he thought about the matter, he said this was to the best of his judgment the correct version, and he said this before he ever knew about the whole Becher testimony. But as I say, if the court chooses, it can exclude this passage from the testimony.
At session 52, page 40, when Freudiger testified, he put before the court a postcard thrown from a running train and the picture of two children killed at Auschwitz. The court returned the picture to the witness and asked that copies be prepared. The picture was not marked with an exhibit number. There was an outburst in court at the moment, and then we took up another matter. We have prepared the necessary photocopies and ask the court to accept these in evidence. Freudiger mentioned this postcard, testified in connection with the picture, and this must be included in the file, in the court file.
President of Court to the Secretary, can I please have the minutes of that session? President of Court, is this one postcard?
Yes, one postcard.
With a picture?
In fact, on a picture, words were written on the reverse, and this was thrown out of the running train.
Kinder. הוא באמת קורקטי נורא, הוא היה יכול להגיד.
אפשר אולי בינתיים לברר באיזו ישיבה נזכר
Judge Halevi, when was Dr. Virba's affidavit mentioned? At what session?
Mr. Hausner, we shall tell the court as soon as we have checked this. Dr. Rave, the Secretary of the Court, has already answered the last question. It is in meeting in session 72. President of Court, Dr. Sabatsis, what do you say in connection with this postcard, sir? We see from the record that this postcard was shown to the court indeed and was returned so that photostatic copies could be made. The intention was clear that this should be submitted later on. Parts of the postcard were also read into the record at that meeting, at that session of the court.
Ich erinnere mich der Sitzung, ich habe keinen Einwand.
אני נזכר
I
בישיבה.
remember the session. I have no objection.
טוב, אז זה אפשר להגיש.
President of Court, yes, this can be admitted immediately right now. President of Court, I shall mark this postcard as T1433.
The court will see this is a picture of two children. The translation of the words written to Willy Freudiger in Budapest is as follows. Wednesday afternoon, 15:06:44. We are in the railway coach crossing Pest from Komaron. SOS. The wife of Joseph Stern, Joseph, Dr. Stern, Salomon and family, Strasbourg.
President of Court, fine. Now, are these all the requests you have?
Mr. Hausner, yes, these are all my requests.
President of Court, we shall now have a 20-minute interval, and after the interval, we shall give our decisions about these three outstanding matters. I think there are three anyway. All the questions are still open.